Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LFA Shop. This week we're going to make the wastegate return line, so it's going to go from the wastegate back into the exhaust, no streamer pipes here, and a whole bunch of other little jobs that need to get done on this thing to get it down the road. So I've received another pile of parts. So we've got a big old V-band here, which is going to be interesting because it's actually huge compared to the other ones. We've got a tapered piece of stainless. I may or may not use this, I'm not 100% sure just yet. We've got a couple of bends, which I've already started cutting. We've got a 2-inch flex, and then we've got a meter of 2-inch stainless as well. So the idea is going to be that this 2-inch comes off of the wastegate and then sneaks underneath the manifold, and then it 90s back down into the lower half of this exhaust or dump pipe so that it's all recirculated. So I'm just going to get on with it and start making some stuff. So the first thing to deal with is this V-band right here. This is either 1 3/4 or 1.5 inches, I'm not 100% sure, and I've got all 2-inch pipe stuff to go to the back. So I was originally bought this tapered section and I was planning to attach it something like that so that it steps up to the 2-inch. However, the 2-inch bend actually fits on the end reasonably well, and in the direction of flow it's not actually going to be a problem. So I'm just going to weld that straight to this bend, but I'm going to cut it and get it as short as I can first. So that means we probably won't need this, but the 2-inch V-band is massive in comparison. And then that's going to have to sneak down here somewhere. So that's going to be probably the hardest part of this whole thing. So a bit of an interesting turn of events here. I've got the first one tacked on, and that's going to clear underneath those manifold runners with a bit of tweaking. And the second one, I'm going to cut a bit of length off so that this V-band can go up higher, but I'm going to keep it as a 90. And then there's not much at all that I need in the middle. And I'm also going to add the flex still, so that's actually going to take up a lot of that gap. So I'm going to need probably about this much of that meter long length that I bought, and then maybe a little bit at this end as well to make it a bit easier. So just keep tinkering away, it's going to come together pretty quick, I think. I've just got most of it tacked together. I've fully welded this end. I'm going to start from one end and fully weld the whole thing. But you can see there's going to be a little bit of clearance issues up here, but it does clear. That's why we've got the bend in it. And once it's out of the vise, it will actually fit a bit better as well. So fully weld those 3 there and this one here. And then I need to make a little piece to go into the main dump. And it is before the O2 sensor, which I had forgotten about, but that's really convenient. So I'm going to keep welding all of this and get it all as good as I can, and then we'll make that last little piece. So with that fully welded, now I need to let it cool down. I'll hit it on the wire wheel and then I can put it back on and then see how that bottom pipe's going to look. Some of these welds are terrible and some of them are not too bad, so hit and miss with the TIG, but at least I can do it. So I've got the last piece cut. I measured this angle as best I could and it's reasonably close. I cut it over length obviously, but the idea is that's going to go in there. So what I want to do now, I'm going to go over to the bench grinder, take out a bunch here and the same spot down the bottom until it fits nicely on a 3-inch pipe. And then I'll come back and this should fit pretty well in there. So I'll go tinker with this for a bit and then I'll come back and I hopefully can get it to just go bonk nicely. So a couple minutes on the belt sander. We've got a weird scallopy guy, and then that actually fits quite well. So I scalloped the whole bunch out and then I just gave it a few light taps with the hammer to straighten up the two sides there, and it all fits pretty good. Then I've just cut a little bit off the top and I'm going to see if I can make this thing fit. I've got a rough idea where this is going to land, right about there, and it is pretty straight. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to unbolt this guy from the rest of the collection and then put this in the vise, and I'll trim this until that guy fits nicely. And then we can put it all back together, see if it all fits, and then weld it together. So that's about all I have time for tonight, but we've got this welded on. Hopefully it's in the right spot. And then most of that is cut out. And you can see I still need to die grind the sides, so the top and bottom are pretty good. And then once I put it all back together with the manifold, which is on the ground, I have to weld this final V-band onto here. Now that actually does clip on, which means I've got a little bit of silliness if I want to pop it off and then weld it rather than pushing it on. So we'll see how we go. Hopefully everything lines up nicely, because I don't want to have to fix this, because that's a lot of work just there. But I'll come out tomorrow, I'll finish grinding that off camera, and then we'll weld that guy on. So it has felt like many hours, but I finally got this guy all diagrammed up. Just working out where this V-band's going to get welded on now. Hopefully you can see in there it's reasonably smooth. There is a few bits in there that I'd like to fix, but I actually can't get in there, because you can see right on the back there's a few little boogers, but I can't get in there with the die grinder, so it's going to have to do. And this is the exhaust, so it's all just going to get blown out the back at some point anyway if it comes off, so I'm not too concerned. So now I'm going to weld this guy, just give it a little tack so that I can bolt all this together and then weld it in for good. Boy, oh boy, was that a pain. So it's all together now. As you can see from the reflection, there's a few dents here from cleaning in the vise, because this thing just kept wiggling. So this one's all butted up nicely. Can't really see it. There's a bit of bend in this guy, which I expected. There's clearance here, which is nice, more than I expected, which is actually good. And then this guy, I had to undo everything and just let it all sort of like relax, and then put all the clamps on and then do them all up. So wastegate's all back together, everything's all bottomed out nicely. Once this heats up, I imagine this flex will sort of relax a little bit and be a bit nicer. I also need to take this guy off. I haven't got a gasket in here, and I also want to give this pipe here a go on the wire wheel, so I'll do that in a second. So I may as well undo those two, undo the four at the top, and then I'd like to get the manifold like sandblasted or acid dipped or something, and then just give it a coat of like heat proof paint. I may do the same with the exhaust housing, we'll see how we go. And then I'm going to heat wrap this pipe at the very least, but maybe that one, and that one. We'll see how we go. But I definitely need to do the top one, because that is close to everything. So I'll rip that off and give it a wire wheel. Okay, we're all back together. Everything's got a gasket on it, and I think everything's tight except for the nuts on the turbo. What a mission. It's all there. So you got your exhaust flange in here for your head. It'll bring the exhaust gases up into the turbo and into the wastegate. When the turbo reaches the pressure that I want, it'll open the wastegate, come through down into the exhaust, and the turbo, while spooling up, will spit all of the exhaust out of here. For anyone who doesn't know how turbos work, that's a very short lesson. So the exhaust from here back is also done. So that's actually, I think, the whole exhaust system and hot side all completed, other than heat wrap, which I'd like to do, and then painting the manifold like I said before. So hopefully this clears the oil drain, because that's the only thing I'm not 100% sure about, but that should come out of here and come straight down and then have a bit of wiggle on it. So if that doesn't work, that's the easiest thing to fix. So pretty happy with all of that. We've still got our O2 sensor ready to go, so nothing to it but to bolt it back on the car, but I can't do that right this second. I'd just like to interrupt this video to let you guys know The merch store is finally up and proper. We have all of the stuff. We have air fresheners with the K10 on it. We have lanyards, plenty. We have so many lanyards with the original El Jefe's Chop Shop logo. We have hoodies like this one. We have a few different Corolla shirts, and we have the basic t-shirt as well, in long and short sleeve. And if you're a sticker guy, there's a bunch of different options. So head over to the merch store in the description and grab yourself something cool. Let's get back to the video. So the next job that I'd like to tackle is the air conditioning fittings. So I've had to move the air conditioning dryer, which I couldn't remember the name for last episode. So to do that, I need to move it 8 inches, roughly. I was using Imperial, I'm guessing, for some reason. So about 200 mil, doesn't really matter, onto this one. So those two need to be joined, and then a whole lot longer. And then this one, I actually managed to cut about 200 mil out of. Actually, sorry, this one and this one go together, 200 mil apart. And this one, I managed to cut about 200 mil out of this one. So they can just get welded back together straight like that. And then the other one I need to extend. So I was at the wrecking yard yesterday for an unrelated quest, and I actually grabbed a piece of aircon line from a random car. It happens to be the same size. It's actually off a pretty new car, and it came with a few little extra bits. So I'm going to try and weld this together. Got a few scraps, so I'll try and weld this together, and then I can, once I'm confident with that, I can weld the piece that I actually need into those guys, and then weld them together. So Navi did the stuff on the compressor, and I'm doing the stuff on the other side. So if either leaks, it's going to be this one, but that was me. So we'll see how we go. So I think the next thing to do on this absolute spaghetti monster is to heat wrap this top pipe and see how far we can get wrapping the other two. So I've never actually heat wrapped anything before. So I know that you're supposed to wet the stuff and you're supposed to wear gloves. So I'll do those two things and then we'll get wrapping. Boy, oh boy, was that a pain in the bum. So it's all back together, it's all properly sealed, all Loctited, all tight. I am incredibly itchy because this stuff is fiberglass, obviously. And I kept most of it off my hands, but then leant it against my body, and my t-shirt is full of it. So now, if I can get all this in one piece into the car, that'd be ideal. And then I can get to the bolts, hopefully. That'd be great. Now I just gotta put the drain on once it's in the car, and it's pretty much done. If not, this bottom section is gonna have to come off. Hopefully I can leave the rest of it on and bolt it all up, and then put some from the bottom. So this is going to be a huge pain in the car, which is why I've put it all together and hoping I can get it all in one piece. So now with that exhaust wrapped, I'm going to move on to the next job. So in the front here, I've taken everything out in the previous episode. Everything's painted and ready to go back in. So it's worth mentioning I have put new O-rings in the air conditioning lines, because if they leak when I put everything in, all of that stuff has to come out to actually get to those two fittings. So 2 new O-rings there, one on the front and one on the other end of that. And then when I get to the other end, I'll put all new O-rings on that as well. Just bought a little kit from my local car part shop, and it's all good to go. So now I'll grab the top and bottom radiator and intercooler supports and bolt all this stuff back together for good, hopefully. Okay, that was incredibly fiddly, so I hope I don't have to pull it all out to do the aircon lines again. So we got the top and bottom radiator and intercooler mounts in, the intercooler in there, got the radiator in there, got the intercooler pipes started, so they're both done up at this end. I need one more clamp, which is on its way for there because it's actually a different size, and then when I put the hot side on, I can plumb up that guy. So that's pretty much all of that done. Need to run a bunch of wiring back over to this side, and then this corner's pretty much done. The front's pretty much done. I got to put up the rad hoses and connect all them, obviously. Then plug in the fans, and then this front corner is pretty much done. other than again electrical and mounting the intake, which you can't do until the rear housing's on. And then there's a bunch of wiring and hoses and stuff in there that I need to fix up. So I guess that's probably the next step, but not really sure I'm going to continue on with right this second. So I've spent a bit of time just organising and thinking, move some stuff out of the way. So I'm going to come back in and tackle this another day, but I have a bit of a better plan and a bit of a better look at everything. So I think I need to put the hot side in next to see where I have to route everything around. I think I'm going to need 2 people for that because it's going to be bloody heavy at full reach. And I also have to take the bottom pipe off, which is a bit of a bummer, and then try and get all that bolted up. So I'll have to wait till the mate comes around to bolt that up. And then I'm going to try and work out where the heater goes, heater lines go, the fuel reg goes, and the fuel lines. And then move all the wiring as well, because it currently is just where it was in the Honda, give or take. And I don't particularly like it, and it could be a whole lot better, and it could be a whole lot more out of the way. So I'm just going to tinker on all of that when I come back in here next time, and just try and make this a whole lot nicer and a bit easier to deal with. Now I know I showed you the air conditioning lines and me trying to weld them together. They are quite fiddly, and I also haven't had time to mount anything to run them to. So I'm going to push those out to the next episode, and I'll sort out that stuff then. Now I've got a bit of a list going. I need to do a bunch of wiring, I need to do a bunch of plumbing, but most of the main things are finished. They're on the bench behind me. So that's going to bring us to the end of this episode, and I'll catch up with all of that stuff and get it all installed next week, and then we can hopefully get this thing buttoned up and ready for the ECU and the sensors. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.